to Michelangelo's great picture in the Sistine Chapel called The Creation of Man, of Adam. And God the Father is down with his finger, pointing to man. But I put it the other way around, and I've got the creation of God. Gods are created by men, but not the other way around.
So the narratives, the human narrative.
It's a human narrative. It's a human narrative, not a heavenly narrative. And I just wanted to make this point.
The Greeks were almost there before.
Oh, they were there. They were there.
We don't know how many ancestors we had.
Oh, the Greeks 500 years before Christ. The genealogists and the historians talk about a Greek miracle. Well, that it was really a miracle, because suddenly, within the space of 30 years, you move from Socrates to Aristotle. In 2 generations. Now, Socrates was the man who invented gods, but Aristotle was the man who invented bodily knowledge. He used to send for, as his pupil, Alexander the Great, moved towards India. He was to send back any animals, skeletons he could find, send it back to Aristotle to examine. And Aristotle began to note how all the animals, all the mammals, all look similar. They all had front and back limbs. Some of them had tails, but the tails was often to balance them, and you could make some sense out of it. But the human body of bipedal creatures standing upright, or no, nothing else stood upright. Things stood upright, the kangaroos very briefly, but then as they got old, they walked on all fours again. So we learned an awful lot of the Greek miracle. And then with Christianity, we fell back in the darkness. So we have what they call the Dark Age. So when the Irish people, Irish historians talk to you about saints and scholars, there were no saints and scholars in ancient Ireland. That is the conclusion I have to draw. There weren't saints and scholars.
But the missionaries were translating in script.
They were translating in script.
And exporting that. So
yes, but they weren't catching up.
No. I mean, it's all hand scripted, but they were.
Yeah. And really, they didn't go beyond Aristotle.
Oh gosh, no.
Aristotle was.
Well, they created very little. I think they copied. They really copied.
Yes,
the missionaries didn't create much, but I mean, basically, they were just scripts. Yeah.
So there we are.
And right behind you, one last.
Another one.
But this man has got his head in the shadow. This looks fairly more recent in a way, because it's almost saying, we know we're in trouble now, but we're still going to keep it going, because he's got the crucifix in the light, and he's got the teddy in the light.
Yes.
So they're going to run with it for as long as they can get away.
Oh, they go. It's making money. They had somebody you could milk over and over again by telling you, this was extraordinary. Heaven wasn't sealed. The afterlife wasn't sealed. You could go to purgatory, and yes, by the prayers and the money is very important, of the relatives, they could get you out of purgatory.
And into heaven.
What
about limbo? I think limbo's gone.
No, limbo's gone. Limbo was a place of state of art, if you remember the catechism. A place of state of art where the bones of the dead before Christ were detained. In other words, Aristotle couldn't simply be another nobody. He had to be somebody. And it wasn't because Jesus was there. It was because Jesus had anticipated Aristotle and Plato, the Stoics, and all these people. And they all went to limbo.
Great.
And you couldn't get them out of limbo either, not by buying mass cards for them. And when we were down in Carrick, a man pointed out to me across the road. He said, "You see that shop across the road?" Yeah, I said, "Yes." He said, "It's a big draper shop." And the woman had a lot of money. And when she died, she left 10,000 each to her 2 sons, and she left another 500,000 to the church to say masses. And she estimated the masses would do for 20 years, 500,000. And some priest had pointed out, you can't get the people to celebrate mass for that amount of money each time. It's just ridiculous. He said she wants to have lots more money besides that.
It wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough.
Okay.
So
Oh, I must remember that.
couldn't get
I'll give my
around
money to somebody else then.
I- I-